Alright, let me ask you something. Close your eyes for a second and imagine this. You're sitting right there, right now, and suddenly you hear a voice. But not through your ears, through inside your head. A voice so clear, so commanding, that every fiber of your being believes that it's real. Now here's the question that should terrify you. If you heard God's voice speaking directly into your mind, telling you to do something, would you listen? What if I told you most people would? What if I told you that some people already have? And what if I told you that God wasn't the one behind his own voice? What's going on, Midnight Mafia? Thank you guys for joining me once again. I hope you guys love this episode. It's absolutely crazy, but in the comments, let me know if you prefer Sunday or Mondays. It's been split, so, whatever gets the most, I'll take that into consideration, okay? Now, without any further ado, as of now, it's time to slip into a mind that's not our own. Let's go. And please be sure to like this because it's free, it helps me, and why not? Okay, in 1991, during the Gulf War, something impossible happened in the Iraqi desert. The enemy laid down his weapon, sobbing, but not from fear, from faith. A group of battle-hardened soldiers suddenly began just laying down their weapons. Not because they were surrounded or defeated at the moment, but because they said God or Allah told them to. But here is what those soldiers did not know. The voice they heard was not divine. It was beamed directly into their skulls by American forces using technology so advanced that only they could hear it. Everyone else around heard nothing but wind across the sand. The Iraqis called it the voice of Allah. The Americans called it psychological warfare. But the scientists who built it by a clinical name, and that was the microwave auditory effect. So let's go to Walter Reed Army Institute of Research in 1973. Dr. Joseph Sharp stepped into a chamber lined with microwave transmitters. And he put on headphones that weren't connected to anything. No wires, no speakers, no sound source, and it was way before Bluetooth. And his colleague, Dr. Mark Groves, started the microwave array from the next room over. And Sharp's headphones remained silent. But inside of his skull, something incredible began to happen. He began to hear words clear, intelligible words that seemed to originate from inside his own head. 9 of the 10 words that were spoken were perfectly recognizable. Not through his ears, but transmitted directly into his brain by pulsed microwaves that caused rapid thermal expansion in the skull. This stuff is crazy. And Sharp felt it too. A buzzing sensation like electrical current running through his thoughts. Pressure pressing against the inside of his skull. They had successfully transmitted human speech directly into a person's head without any external sound whatsoever. They had created artificial telepathy. Now, as you could imagine, these implications were staggering. If you could make someone hear voices that felt completely real, what couldn't you make them do? More importantly, if those voices claimed to be God, who would question them? Would you? So within months, Sharp and Groves' discovery was classified and handed over to DARPA. They called their weaponized version Medusa, Mob Access Deterrent Using Silent Audio. And the concept was actually quite elegant. Mount microwave transmitters on vehicles, target enemy soldiers, beam voices directly into their heads, voices only they can hear, voices that seem to come from their own thoughts. Close your eyes and imagine being in combat when suddenly you hear a voice inside your head telling you to surrender. Not shouted over a loudspeaker, but whispered directly in between your mind. The voice could claim to be your commander, your God, or just your conscience. And because the technology bypassed normal hearing entirely, there was no way to block it. Earplugs were useless. The microwaves penetrated walls, vehicles, even underground bunkers. You literally could not escape the voices once they were inside your head. So in 1991, during Operation Desert Storm, American psychological operation teams deployed experimental microwave weapons, something that most soldiers knew nothing about. And these weren't massive truck-mounted systems. They were portable units that could be carried by special forces or mounted on aircraft. I mean, the strategy was ingenious. Rather than, generic surrender demands, the weapons spoke in Arabic, using religious language. The voices identified themselves as Allah, or angels, or the Prophet Muhammad himself. So Iraqi forces who were, fighting fiercely suddenly began walking across no man's land with just their hands raised. And when questioned, they all told the same story. God had spoken to them directly, telling them that the war was over. And the Americans buried this success so deep that most personnel were told the surrender was due to conventional psychological warfare. But the operators knew the truth. They had successfully field-tested technology that could make the enemy soldiers believe they were receiving direct communications from their deity. And the war ended. The weapons disappeared into classified black projects. But absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. So fast forward to the Washington Navy Yard, September 16th, 2013. Aaron Alexis, a 34-year-old defense contractor with high-level security clearance, walked into Building 197 carrying a shotgun. And over the next hour, he would kill 12 people before being shot dead by police. And when investigators, came in and they kind of examined his weapon, they found something chilling carved into the stock of the gun. And it said, "My ELF weapon, ELF. Extremely low frequency, the same electromagnetic spectrum used in microwave auditory weapons." And then the FBI found documents on Alexis' devices describing ultra-low frequency attacks. He wrote about these voices being projected into his head, about being controlled by electromagnetic waves, and about 3 months of torment that has driven me to do this. On a personal note, guys, this story hit me really hard because I actually have a friend back home in Massachusetts who has said that this has happened to them. And this was over a decade ago. So I'm just rethinking everything right now. But most disturbing with this story, everything Alexis described about the voices, their clarity, persistence, ability to penetrate walls, matched exactly what declassified documents said about the microwave auditory weapons. And 6 weeks before the shooting, Alexis called police in Rhode Island. He said that 3 people were following him using some sort of microwave machine to send vibrations through ceilings into his body. And the voices were keeping him awake, penetrating his mind even when he switched hotels. Now, as you could imagine, police assumed he was having a mental breakdown. But Alexis wasn't describing, random delusions. He was describing with technical accuracy exactly how microwave auditory weapons work. He was of Buddhist faith who practiced meditation. And friends described him as a quiet, intellectual, nonviolent person. No history of aggression or mental illness. And he had successfully held security clearance for years. But in 3 months before the shooting, the exact time frame mentioned, everything changed. He began hearing, whispers that weren't there, like thoughts that arrived before he even thought of them. And when he tried to, go and meditate, they only got louder. He told one friend that it felt like something had moved into his brain and then refused to leave. So he started switching hotels constantly, one after the other, complaining about these vibrations, feeling controlled by these external forces. I mean, think about it. How does somebody with no background in microwave physics spontaneously develop precise knowledge of classified weapons technology? The answer might be that he didn't develop that knowledge at all. He experienced it. And here's what we know, okay? The technology exists. The patents are real. The military has admitted to developing microwave auditory weapons for decades. In 2008, Sierra Nevada Corporation announced they were ready to produce an updated Medusa. And these new weapons could transmit recognizable sounds and specific messages with perfect clarity. They could target individuals from nearly a mile away, or if they wanted to, they could go broad and affect entire crowds. And unlike experimental, Gulf War systems, these were designed for domestic use in the USA. Crowd control, riot suppression, perimeter protection. In the military, they promised that they would never be used on American citizens. But promises are easy to break when weapons are classified and targets can't prove what's happening to them. Which brings us to the most terrifying question. How many Aaron Alexises are out there? How many people diagnosed with schizophrenia or bipolar are actually victims of weapons testing? And how many possible mystery episodes has this technology been used in? I mean, the symptoms match perfectly. Voices from inside the head, voices that can't be blocked, voices that follow you everywhere, and voices that cause a mental breakdown. The people most likely to be targeted? Well, defense contractors, former military, people with clearances, are exactly whose claims of government harassment would be dismissed as a paranoid delusion. I mean, it's perfect cover if you think about it. Use classified weapons to drive someone insane, then point to their insanity as proof that the weapons don't exist. But there's an even darker possibility. What if these weapons aren't just for harassment? What if they are for control? If you can make somebody hear God's voice, commanding them, what won't they do? I mean, religious extremism, terrorist attacks, mass shootings. How many might actually be artificial voices planted in already disturbed minds? I mean, the technology can create voices that seem divine. It can target individuals without others hearing it that could be right next to them. It can drive people to breakdown, and it can drive people to violence. And the most likely targets are people who have already access to weapons, classified information, in sensitive locations. I mean, Aaron Alexis, he had access to naval facilities and security clearance. If someone wanted to test whether the voice of God weapon could drive someone to violence, he would have been the perfect subject. Let me paint the picture for you, okay? You're a defense contractor showing psychological vulnerability, and you become a test subject. Now, everything doesn't happen at once, of course not. No, they start as whispers, easy to dismiss. But they grow stronger, more commanding over time. They follow you everywhere, even at night. They break down your defenses and they make you desperate. They claim to be from God or maybe even government agencies. And they tell you that you are special. You are chosen for this important mission. And the only way to end the torment is to take action. Well, because the voices are literally inside your head, you begin to believe them. You buy weapons, you make plans, you prepare for the mission. And when you finally act, when you commit violence that shocks the world, the investigation concludes that you were mentally ill, and the voices were never real. Perfect crime, perfect weapon, perfect cover-up. And the most terrifying part isn't the technology's existence. It's its deniability. If someone claims that they're targeted by microwave weapons, they sound crazy. If they describe voices no one else can hear inside their head, they sound mentally ill. And then the more accurate that they describe how it works, the crazier they sound to people who don't know it's real. Victims are discredited by their own accurate testimony. Think about that. Meanwhile, the perpetrators remain invisible, protected by classification and the public's assumption that technology like this is science fiction. But science fiction became fact 50 years ago. And what was fact then is a deployable weapon today. So here's the question, okay? If someone hears a voice that sounds like God and tells them to do something that they would have never done otherwise or even considered, how do we know where that voice is really coming from? And what if the voice sounds like your own thoughts? What if it feels like your own conscience? What if it convinces you these ideas are coming from your own mind? At that point, would you even know that they're not from your own mind? That's the ultimate evolution. Not foreign voices, not external commands, but thoughts that feel completely natural, completely your own. Thoughts that actually might not be yours at all. That Iraqi soldier who laid down his weapon believed he was obeying God. Aaron Alexis believed he was ending his torment. Both were convinced their actions were their own choice. But what if they were wrong? What if their free will can be overridden by whoever has access to the right frequency? Ladies and gentlemen, the voice of God weapon is real. It has been tested, deployed, and refined for over half a century. The people who control it have proven they're willing to use it on anyone they consider a legitimate target. In a world where thoughts can be implanted and voices artificially created, how do you know which thoughts are actually yours? I mean, maybe God did speak to him that day in the desert, that day in the Navy Yard, that day when everything changed. But through whose microphone? And when a voice speaks to you, when it tells you to do something, to believe something, to act on something, will you be able to tell the difference between divine inspiration and military technology? Will any of us? Because maybe that thought you're having right now isn't even yours. Thank you guys, Midnight Mafia. I love you. If you love episodes like this, hit the like button, leave a comment. If you want my next video to be a mystery, paranormal, true crime, let me know in the comments. And yes, Hell Month Year 3 will continue this October, so I hope you're ready for that. I love you guys. That's all I got for you today. Make sure to hit that like button. Love y'all. Cheers.